also remember a time we walked into Chili's and I had gotten a new shirt. I was probably middle school. Went to
Yeah.
Kohl's or Sears or something. Got a new shirt. It was like a blue polo, but it said like U.S. Polo Association on it, and it said, but it was abbreviated ASSN, and it just had that like all over. And when I walked up, you were like, "Why do you have cuss words all over your shirt?" Like, like in our household, it would be absolutely unacceptable
Yeah.
for us to have cuss words all over our shirt. But I
Yeah.
wasn't met with like blind rage. Go take that off right now. Like you were very like why is that? And I was like, oh no, it's association. You're like, oh okay, like that
Yeah.
makes sense. But I think just that even that approach of like I never got the sense that you were trying to be right and force your own way. Like it was
Mhm.
clear that you had a thought and you had an opinion,
Yep.
but you were never it was never communicated that that thought and opinion is the one you must have and you're stupid for not having it. It was like, hey, this is what I think. Yours differs. Help me understand that. And most of the time it was like, okay, well, let me help you see why that way is wrong.
Yeah. Or why I think that way is wrong. Like, I actually
Yeah.
firmly believe we should be clear about what we believe. We should be respectful about what other people believe. And we should be able to have a conversation and hold our own about why we believe what we believe and why we don't believe what you believe. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's an important capability that we should all have, and do it in a way that's not demeaning.
Right.
Like we can have a conversation with somebody about something that is clearly wrong scripturally. Murder. Let's just take that one. I think most people agree murder is wrong. There's a lot of other things that are just as clear, but let's do that one. Let's just say, I don't know, we run across somebody who believes no, murder is okay. Like, I would think we could have a good conversation about, like, okay, you believe that's wrong. You believe that's right. I will never believe that's right. And here's why. And there's a part of me that wants to tell you, like, that is not a belief you should have. That is not acceptable. Here's my source. Here's what backs it up. There's nothing right about what you're saying. And that's my belief. But there's also a part of me that wants to know why you think the way you think.
Yeah.
Like, there's that part of me that wants to know, what is it that you see that's acceptable about that maybe I don't see. So, like, I think that translated into things for you guys that I was not even aware of, like that, because that's
Mm.
just how I would approach it. Like coming to you and saying, why are there cuss words all over you? I may have been joking to point it out, and that was kind of a fun way to ease into it. Or I might have been, because I don't honestly remember, maybe I just was curious about, like, why why is that okay for you? Like, why do you see that? Like, that
Yeah.
word, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. We had a
Like,
oh go
okay,
ahead.
here's sorry, go ahead. You first.
No, after you.
There's a great example from your childhood that do you remember when you learned the F word?
Vividly. Yes.
So do I. I will never forget. You're walking along. I'll just tell you my version of it. We're walking along, like Daniel's soccer practice, I think, right? And
Yep.
we're walking along, and it's behind a shopping center in this field and park and whatever it was. And we're just like, we were having a good little chat. I don't remember anything other than, like, this was a good chat. And then all of a sudden, out it comes. I'm like, but I remember my reaction was different than what maybe other people's reaction would be. Do you remember how I reacted? What's your recollection?
So I don't know if I remember. I just remember shock, like confused but calm shock. Like
Yeah.
what? I think I feel like you picked me up and we just walked the other direction immediately, right up. But that's all I could really. That's all I remember. I don't know how old I was, but that's all that's in there.
Yeah, you might have been. I don't know. What were you, 5 or 6? I don't know. Mom,
Maybe.
I've figured the dates out, but it just boom, it came out, and I'm like, do you know what you just said? Where did you learn that word? Because I couldn't remember, because it's not a word that was ever used in our household, ever. And so I'm like, how do you know this? And you pointed. You're like, right there. I'm like, what? And sure, there it was, big and plain as day on the back of a dumpster. F word. I'm like, okay. Do you know that's the F word? And I think that's when you had that. Oh, moment.
I had tried to find out. I tried to figure out from Daniel what it was, and he wouldn't budge. He wouldn't tell me.
What the F word was?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So like at that moment, I was like, like I do remember that now. I'm like, that's it. I've been looking for that. I know it's bad, but I want to know everything. So
Found it. Yes. Oh man. For me, that's one of the best examples of like how we, like that thing you were talking about the way we react.
yeah.
And it was for me. I was like, how do you know that? Was more on my mind than never say that again. Like honestly, I don't remember that being in my thought at all. My thoughts were, how do you even know that? Because it's going to be easy for you to understand never to say that again. Like it's the F word. We all, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's funny.
Yeah. We had a conversation, and I think maybe that conversation is what kicked all of this off when I kind of brought that like toolkit, the business idea to you. I'm like, I see a need, and you're like, that's what I do. Like, that's I help people with that specifically. And you're like, how did you come to like learn this? And I kind of fumbled through like trying to explain and articulate like my perspective of that, but I think it makes a lot more sense now. Like the way that you just operated, to our first point, the way that you conducted your life, the way that you interacted with us was like, I'm seeking to understand first rather than be understood. And that just like that mindset was ingrained in me. And so we were talking about leadership, that first conversation. Like, okay, every leadership encounter I have, whether it's good or bad, I want to understand like what's going on. Like why did that happen? What made, X result in Y? And I think that mindset right there of like, I want to know why you think the way you do has actually just not just helped me think for myself, but also understand the world around me in a way that I guess is a little uncommon for like the vast majority of people, to such a degree that you kind of have made a living teaching people how to work with the world around them.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't have a degree in psychology. You've read quite a bit, and I think you've just learned quite a bit, but that mindset of, okay, why? Like seeking to understand, I think goes that maybe that just small shift in perspective and approach has had like a much bigger impact in my life than I've ever really thought about. But that's just because that was your perspective.
Huh. Oh, I love that that's set in with you like it has, like you just described. I do feel like it's really important. If I understand why you think the way you think, I can work with that, right?
Yeah.
I can influence it. Because I said so works for Milo right now because he doesn't know any different, right? You are
It's
the
running out.
It's running out. So it works to a degree when like authority is well defined and understood, but it honestly it doesn't work over the long haul. We have to be able to influence each other and truly influence. And I think influence comes from understanding why and where that person's coming from. I think that's why, like my first question was, why do you know that word? How do you know that word? Super interesting. Hey,
I think that builds trust, though.
What's that?
I would just say I think
No,
that
wait.
builds trust though. Like
Yeah, tell
trust,
me more about that.
like just your like just that approach communicates to me like
Hmm.
okay, he's not like he cares about me, like he's invested in me, like
Hmm.
he's seeking to learn more of me, and like so this is going both ways. I know you care about like my overall well-being, but that communicates it in a deeper way, and
Yeah,
I kind of I very firmly believe that faith is more about trust than like something I learn. Like faith comes from just trusting, and
yeah,
so when my father speaks to me, I can trust what he says, like, and I have faith in what he says. It's the same thing to me, but I think
yep.
that goes a really, really long way into like the cultivation of relationship, and I think that's kind of essential. I mean, if this whole world, our entire operation with God is built upon faith, then I think that communal trust is actually huge.
Yeah, it's a great point because uh, in where was it? Oh, was it Rhema? So Doug Jones was one of my instructors, and he
Hmm.
taught faith as two components. You have to know what the promise is and the reliability of the one who made the promise. And he would talk about those two
Mm-hmm.
things. And so that's where that trust comes in. Like the promise is great, but do I trust it's going to happen? No, God said, so therefore it will. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the trust that you're talking about when it comes to faith and operation. I think you're right; those two are very hand in hand, and it applies with the relationships that we have with the people around us as well. Like their faith in us is built on the trust that they have in us, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like in who we are and how we show up. And it's Stephen Covey talks about um, character or trust in different ways, but character being one of those foundational components of trust. And he describes it, and I agree with this, as um, it's the integrity and intent that you have combined make up your character, right? So your integrity being, do you do the right thing? Do you do the right thing when nobody's looking? Do you do the right thing when it doesn't even benefit you? And then intent, like what do you intend to do? Like, because that's, and
Mm-hmm.
those two things kind of make up character. That just took us down a path. But anyway, I don't know, just random. Okay, question for you. What do you hope happens with what we're doing right now? Like, have you thought about that? Like, so here we are, we're going to have these chats. What do you hope is the outcome of these?
Yeah, good question. I have thought a little bit about it, and you said at the beginning, like I haven't had your experience, uh,
Yeah.
and I haven't had your experience. I had
Hmm. Hmm.
a better experience in my opinion, a far better experience. Like yeah, I don't have qualms and griefs and things that I need counseling to work through when I kind of look back at how I was raised by my dad.
Hmm.
Mom played a huge part, but like specifically just thinking about your experience versus mine.
Yeah.
I think my maybe selfishly, I'm like I'm just enjoying chatting with you. We don't live in the same state. We don't,
Hmm.
talk all the time every day. Emily FaceTimes with her mom just about every single day, and we
Really?
just don't connect that often. So selfishly, I'm like, I'm just enjoying getting to chat with my dad. But
Yeah.
also, I just, if, I don't know if anybody like is helped at all, if like some perspective, some wisdom that you have to share, some insight, maybe just a question for somebody to think about that they never have before. If there's
Hmm.
any benefit at all to someone's like personal life,
Hmm.
walk with God, parenting, whatever it is, like that's a win for me.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. I
that's
feel the same
really
way.
as deep as I've thought.
You know, you and Emily are doing an amazing job with Milo, and Mom and I talk about this all the time. That little dude knows he is loved, and there are, unfortunately, there are there are human beings his age and older that I don't think have the same confidence that he does. And they don't know. And, he's not at a place where he can articulate it, but you just know when you look at that dude and the way he interacts with you guys, the way he interacts with other people, he knows that he's loved. He doesn't understand what that means, but he knows it. And there are people, little people like him that don't. And so one of my hopes from this also is to have people learn from you as well. Like, this isn't all about just, me and what I've done. This is also what you are doing right now and the things that you're going through and the way that you work through them and, what happens. I think those are going to be things and stories that in some ways maybe even more relevant than what you and I did when you were little. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we can draw from that, but I think there's also a lot to offer to people about what you and Emily are doing right now with him and just the way that you and I interact and lots of things to that. So I think I'm super excited about it. Like you said, also, I'm just kind of tickled to be able to just have a chat and make it not super formal. And we can just we were doing this anyway. And so now we just decided, let's record it. And, and maybe somebody can learn something from it, or it might help, or it might spark a conversation, I guess.
Yeah.